In this episode, Golden and I discuss Star Trek Picard. Full speed ahead. Welcome to the Omega Beam number 74. I'm your host, Oren Merton. I hope you're all holding up well and staying safe and healthy and all that. So as you probably know, the Star Trek franchise is owned by CBS Corporation. And over the last few years, they've been revitalizing that franchise with lots of great new shows that they've been making available here in the USA on their paid streaming channel called CBS All Access. Well, their latest Star Trek show is Star Trek Picard, season 1 of which just finished airing all of its episodes. And if I am correct, here in the USA, all of those episodes are now free to stream. So Golden and I wanted to tell you about our thoughts now that we've watched it all. Like all of our TV episodes, there's going to be modest spoilers. We keep it to a minimum because we know a lot of you may not subscribe to CBS All Access, but now that you have the opportunity to watch it, we don't want to give it all away or anything. So with that said, let's go. I am here with Golden to talk about Star Trek Picard. So let's start by talking about the series it all came from originally. Were you a fan of Star Trek Next Generation?
I was. I think I watched every single episode.
When they aired originally?
When they aired originally.
All right. I don't think I watched every single one when they aired originally, but I did watch them. I never liked them. I always liked Picard, the character of Jean-Luc Picard, a lot, but I never really warmed to the show the way that I warmed to the original series. Kirk, Spock, and McCoy were always my jam. And so I appreciated that there was more Trek on the air, but I never got as into them as I did that original show. So when they first announced that there would be a Star Trek Picard series on CBS All Access, I was not super excited. I thought, oh, that's great. I love Patrick Stewart, but I wasn't super excited. Were you immediately?
I wasn't sure what to expect.
Yeah, I had read that it would take place after the event first mentioned in the first Abrams Star Trek movie, The Destruction of Romulus. So I immediately thought, oh, well, that's kind of nice that it's sort of picking up where the most recent reboot movie left off. That's kind of cool, acknowledging, that event in the Trek Prime timeline. But at the same time, like I said, I didn't really love where they took the Star Trek future. So I was excited that there was more Trek, but not necessarily about this show, if that makes sense. So now that we've watched all 10 episodes, what did you think?
Oh, it was great. It was a lot more about the story than, okay, we have to have a lot of action in here. Mm-hmm. And it was a nice change of pace. You had characters that didn't very necessarily agree with each other. This friction and this, how do we all get along? How do we accept people? There was a lot of just really good messages.
I would agree. I liked it a lot more than I thought I would. I think a lot of credit has to go to the cast. Certainly Patrick Stewart is amazing, not just in this role, but in pretty much anything. But I thought that the entire cast was actually quite good, and they put together, instead of it just being straight up Starfleet, everyone is Starfleet. They went for a more ragtag crew. I'm not going to give too many spoilers because I'm guessing not too many people have seen it yet. But they created a nice kind of ragtag crew because in this setup, Picard is now out of Starfleet. He is no longer a Starfleet officer. He is a former Starfleet officer. And so the people that he ends up traveling with are either former Starfleet officers or just sort of civilians in their own right, trying to make their own way. And yet there still is a lot of room for, you've got your alien character, you've got your synthetic character, and it plays on a lot of what Next Gen had started playing with, like the rights of synthetic beings and things like that, which I remember was a really big episode where Picard, I don't remember the name of individual episodes, but there was that one episode where Picard is basically fighting for Data's life and his rights in a
and that's kind of where this
court
picks
martial.
up.
Yeah, and this one picks up right from there. And not meaning not in time, but that
kind of
philosophy.
Yeah.
And I like that.
He's gotten in trouble. I mean, that's part of the reason that he's no longer with Starfleet.
Right. He basically blew it big time. He's no longer the, omnipotent, omniscient Captain Picard who can do no wrong. He's someone who can do wrong. And who's old, I mean, the character of Picard, I believe they said in the show, he's 94. Now, Patrick Stewart isn't that old, but, he's supposed to be a 94-year-old captain. Admittedly, this is in the future where people are living routinely into their 130s. So, I mean, being 94 does not mean end of life, but it does sort of show him in a much more vulnerable state. There's, in, I believe, the very first episode, there is a moment where he has to run up some stairs, and the character in front of him is like bolting up the stairs, and he has to tell her, wait, stop, hold on, because, he's not the action hero anymore. And I think they handled his aging very, very well. I think they handled his vulnerabilities very, very well. And that goes to both the credit of the writers and, of course, to Patrick Stewart, who plays the part amazingly. If I were going to throw any kind of criticism, and it wasn't enough to ruin my enjoyment of it, you said it was about story, and I agree. But sometimes I think it did get a little bit slower than it needed to. I think the nice part about that is it lets the personal moments, it gives them room to breathe. But too much room and things can get a little slow. I don't think that, like I said, it wasn't enough to take me out of it, to have me sitting there staring at my watch going, okay, they've just been staring at each other with a smile, drinking tea for the last 15 minutes. Come on, guys. There was none of that. But there were times I thought they could have picked up the pace a little bit. If I were to level one other criticism, it's that I think the trailers have been really good about not necessarily letting you know who the villains are or anything like that. So I'm not going to specifically say, oh, these are the bad guys or this is the bad guy. But I am going to say that one of the characters who is clearly on the wrong side of the issue is such a mustache-twirling caricature of darkness who just enjoys doing things to be harmful. And I mean, it's like a cartoon cutout, which I think the reason it bothered me as much as it did is because all the other characters, I think, are so well drawn that having one character who is like the mustache twirling villain.
But it's the character that believes that this is the right thing to do.
Oh, she certainly believes that she's acting right.
Using gender.
I know, I did give away a gender of a character, but there's a lot of females in this. But yeah, certainly she believes in what she's doing, but just some of the things, just her mannerisms with other people, with the people who are on her side, with the people that she is antagonistic to, with the people who are in her family. I think it's just being like over the top to be over the top. That's
so you
how it
mentioned
looked
that,
to me.
this is about AIs.
Right.
But it's not just the AIs. You also have the Borg, who have been through what they've been through, and how
the
they're
reclaimed Borg,
and how they're treated.
Like, what's her name?
And I think that
Seven
of Nine,
yeah.
Jerry Ryan coming back to reprise the role was really, I didn't I didn't see anything about it. I didn't hear anything about it ahead of time. So I thought it was nice to see her be able to be the character and not have to wear a catsuit this time.
Yeah, I remembered she was coming back because I had read it. And my first thought was, she was never in Next Generation. I mean, would Picard have known her? But then my next thought was, I'm guessing they'll either
he
wave
would
it
have known her
because they were all connected.
because
At
they
one
were
point.
connected.
They were all part of the hive. That and that's what I thought after that. I was like, you know what? I'm sure I'm sure there's a very valid in-story reason why she would be there, and there was. And I think that she
definitely about humanity and what makes you human.
Yeah, and speaking of her character, again, going back to some of the great strengths of this series, is you've, I'm sure, watched more Star Trek Voyager than I have, because I've probably watched a total of half a dozen episodes, if that. I think I may only have seen 1 or 2 episodes with her in it. And I did not think that, well, I did not particularly warm to Star Trek Voyager at all, but I didn't particularly think that her character in the episode I saw was all that well used. And I think here, the actress and the character really had a chance to shine in a wonderful way.
I thought that she did an excellent job with what they gave her for Voyager.
Okay.
And Voyager is another one that I watched every single episode.
Okay.
The only spin-off or Star Trek series on TV that I didn't actually watch the entire thing of was Deep Space Nine. I think I missed the last couple seasons.
Did you watch all of Enterprise?
Oh, yeah, no, I didn't make it through that one either. Sorry.
Yeah, we made it through first season.
Sorry, I forgot about Enterprise.
Yeah, we made it through first season of DS9.
And I'm a big Scott Bakula fan.
And I don't know, I just never finished it. Wasn't all that excited. And then Enterprise, I think I watched a total of 1 single episode and was like, yeah, this is not my Trek. Goodbye. So I have not watched Enterprise at all. I mean, the introductory theme song of Enterprise is actually enough to scare me away. So
why is that?
Because it was just not a song that I would ever listen to for any reason ever under any conditions. And I was just like, really? This is how we're doing this? Okay. But yeah, and speaking of themes, I love the music. We haven't talked about the technicalities of this show. I loved Jeff Russo's score. I thought he integrated the previous scores incredibly well as making his own mark on the show. I thought he did a great job. The special effects are, of course, spectacularly excellent. They're just really, really top-notch. I wasn't super crazy about the opening graphic, but that was just me. I know you liked it a lot, so it's certainly not a reason to not watch a show because you're not crazy about the opening graphic, especially since I think you could even hit skip intro and you didn't have to actually watch it every time. But yeah, overall, I would definitely say this is a wonderful addition to the Trek canon. It was eminently watchable. It was more intellectual than action, which I enjoyed. I'm looking forward to season 2. I think it definitely deserves a season 2, and I can't wait to see where it goes because I think it set it up.
Yeah, you had the
really
Picard
well.
character, and you have what it's like for him in retirement, and with the people that he now cares about, and he's back at home, but it just doesn't feel like home. Still,
exactly.
You have Dr. Agnes Jurati, who is all sorts of conflicted. You have Soji, who doesn't even know she's an AI. You have Rafi, who is back and forth just trying to hold on to her own sanity. I mean, these are definitely characters that are not just one layer. Even the captain. Even Rios.
Yeah, Chris Rios.
I mean, each of the characters, you get to find out a little bit more about each of the characters in each episode. There are some episodes that are a little bit more about this character than they are another one. and it's beautiful.
Speaking of bringing
really
in,
beautiful.
yeah, and speaking of bringing in characters, I of course had read that they were going to bring in most of the next gen characters for cameos, and that was one of the reasons I was a little lukewarm about the show, because I thought, oh, they're just going to be bringing in characters for stunts, just a stunt cameo for fan service, and it's not going to move the story, and it's not going to have any real bearing on what they're trying to do in this series. But in fact, when they did bring in characters from the show, and they did not bring them all in, only specific ones, it did actually have a significant impact on that particular episode and in moving the actual story. So I thought that was done well.
And I like that they came back to some of the characters that 7 of 9 had connection with.
Yeah.
Even though it's been so long that you may not remember the
right.
connection.
I had no idea.
But they
I had to read about it later.
Didn't spend too much time to remind you, but they still reminded you.
Right.
And they did a good job of that. I thought that it was high quality TV. The special effects were good. The characters are good. The costuming, all around, it just hit the spot.
Yeah. Yeah, like I was saying, I think this is definitely worth watching. And in the United States, at least, I am almost certain that I read that CBS was allowing Picard to be streamed for free.
I don't think it's just Picard. I think they're giving you some of CBS All Access.
Oh, even more than just that.
Yeah, I
even
think
better.
so.
So I would highly recommend, if you're a Star Trek fan, but you haven't been watching the All Access shows because you're like, well, I don't know if I want to spend, $6 a month or whatever to get All Access.
All I did was do a quick Google search, and it says CBS All Access now 1 month free.
Oh, so there you go.
So you can get a month free to binge this. You can binge whatever series,
Sure.
Mandalorian.
10 episodes. You can do this easily in a
Yes.
week and have another 3 weeks to binge their other shows. But yeah, I highly recommend, if you like good science fiction, this isn't one of those things where you have to know Next Gen or you have to know Voyager or whatever to enjoy this. Because I didn't know Voyager. I hadn't watched most of the Next Gen.
And they give you a quick little reminder as to who these people are and what their connection is.
Right. And they invent a fair amount of their own mythology as well. Like, one of the great characters is a character, Elner, who is a Romulan of a stripe you've never seen before in any of the Treks, and so, which I don't want to get into because I think his very character is interesting and unique. And
there's still that child in him, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he hasn't really had a chance to experience the galaxy, the universe, whatever you want, however you want to.
Exactly, and his relationship to Picard is unique and interesting, and you get to watch it deepen as the show goes on. And it's definitely worth it. I mean, just the storytelling is definitely worth it. For those of you who didn't know, one of the showrunners of season 1, unfortunately he left to do his own projects for season 2, but one of the showrunners of season 1 and head writer, showrunners, I don't remember the exact job, was Michael Chabon, I believe is how you pronounce his name, who's a Pulitzer Prize winning novelist. Definitely one of the finest writers working today. So this certainly carries on a tradition from the original series, which is when Gene Roddenberry got some of the very, very famous science fiction writers of the day, like Harlan Ellison and Theodore Sturgeon, to write episodes of Star Trek. And here again, we have a Pulitzer Prize winning writer writing episodes of Star Trek, and it is definitely at that caliber. So this is the level of show that we're talking about.
So I'm going to segue for just one moment.
Okay.
Because I'm just looking at like the series directed by, and Jonathan Frakes is in there, and just reminds me that I remember being very entertained when Next Generation had been on for a while and Gargoyles came out.
Okay.
And just being like, oh, there's another of the cast. Oh, hey, there's another of the cast. Oh, hey, there's another of the cast. And just recognizing all of these voices from Next Generation that just were on different characters in Gargoyles. I mean, Jonathan Frakes is one of the main characters. But, yeah, no, it's just...
Very nice, very nice. Well, thank you, Golden.
You're welcome.
And that's it for this episode. You can find the show notes at theomegabeam.com/74. If you liked this episode, please leave a review in the Apple Podcasts app or wherever you listen to podcasts. Reviews like this help other people who like this kind of thing find our podcast. If you've got any comments or suggestions, please drop us a line at info@theomegabeam.com. Be good to yourselves and each other, and we'll catch you next time.